Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Today I'm going to be giving a suitcase a makeover using Redesign with Prima's beautiful new fiber paper, transfers, H2O transfers and molds. For my project today, I'm working on this beautiful little case that I thrifted. Now, obviously it had a great shape, but it was looking very dated. Now, I discovered that I actually could just peel off the coating, whatever they had on their vinyl. So I was able to just pull that straight off, and I thought that would make my life a lot easier. The sections around the middle though were very secure, so I left them. I then used a white 2-in-1 primer over the top of the flat areas to start off with. So this is going to prepare the surface for paint, and it's also going to stop any bleed through because this was actually made out of timber. I then moved on to the center part, and I decided that I would actually tape off the handles and the latches to reduce any paint that I got in those areas, and then I added my primer there too. I am going to avoid getting it on the straps around the outside. I can wipe off any excess paint that I get there. Same for the areas on the bottom that I didn't tape up. So I did 2 coats of that, let it dry completely, and then I took out Redesign with Prima's new Crimson Elegance fiber paper. This is a 2-pack. I am going to be working with the larger paper in this design, which is the same as this smaller one here, but as I just said, it's a lot larger. So I had a lot to work with here. So I had a look at what would fit, and then I went in with my scissors and cut it out to size, and I cut 2 pieces from that. I'm going to be using Redesign with Prima's Decoupage Gel in Matte. I'm laying down a generous coat, and then I'm pressing the fiber paper into that wet medium, smoothing it out, and then applying another coat. I did get a little wrinkle here or there, but I was able to fix this easily by adding some baking paper and using an iron on a low setting over the top once my fiber paper was dry, and this fixed that issue right up. Part of that was my fault. Make sure you try and iron your papers before use. Next, I am going to go around with a combination of a craft knife and some 180 grit sandpaper to remove the excess paper from around the outside. Then I moved on to the next side. So I've already got my paper cut out and ready to go. So I'm going to lay down another generous coat, and then I'm going to add the fiber paper to the surface. I'm then going to repeat the same process, adding some more of that medium over the top. And then once that's dry, I am going to use that craft knife and the sandpaper to remove the excess. And as you can see, these florals are so beautiful and rich, and I love the extra script in the background. Next, I had to pick a paint color for the center section, so I went with this beautiful rich dark pink. I'm going to be adding 2 coats of this. This is a mineral paint, so it has a built-in sealer, so I'm going to be applying that there. You probably noticed that I did just use the primer underneath the fiber paper on the other sections. That's just so that my design can show beautifully to its best advantage. You just want a nice clean slate for that paper to go on. So I'm applying 2 coats of that. I'm also adding it to the interior section. I had a little look at the interior section and decided that I would actually just remove that fabric. It was pretty old and stained. So I wanted to get rid of that and give this part a makeover too. I ended up going in with a cream chalk paint. Now I'm doing a messy coat for 2 reasons. I want this to have a vintage look, but I need a nice light canvas like we talked about for my next paper that I'm going to be using, but I kept it messy so it still looked vintage. You're going to be able to see the subtle tone underneath. I then took out Redesign with Prima's Floral Text fiber paper. This is one of their older ones, but you can find it online on their website. And I am going to work out here what parts of this I can use on the inside, and then I'm going to cut it to size. I am going to be doing the same for the bottom as well. So I'm going to have the flat image on the base, and then I will add other parts of this paper around the edge so that everything is the right way up. I'm going to add a nice generous coat on the inside. And then once I have that covered, I'm going to lay the paper in that wet medium and smooth it out so that it's all nice and secure. And then I'm going to add another coat over the top of that. I was careful not to get any of that medium on the outside edge. As I said, I am going to be reorganizing that paper around the edge so it's the right way up. I then added more medium to the lid and then added the paper to the top part. And I just love this because it reminds me of how they used to put newspapers in old suitcases. So this was just the perfect combination. So I'm adding another coat over the top of that, and then once that was all dry, I used my craft knife, this time just the craft knife, to cut off the excess from the inside. And then I will also be doing the same for the top lid as well, getting rid of that excess. This paper is really generously sized, so I was then able to cut out some more paper from the same sheet, and I'm adding more product around the inner rim there of the case, and I'm going to add some more of that exact same paper around the edge, filling that all in, piecing it together, and then adding some more of the decoupage medium over the top to get it all secure. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I did end up doing this section a little bit more in pieces just to make sure that I had it sitting all nice. So I ended up cutting out 3 different pieces. So one for that bottom section, another one to arch up around the left, and then another one to go around the right. And I am going over the top of that just like before with some more of that decoupage gel. I then cut off the excess from the top and bottom and then took out Midnight Rose. This is a new transfer from Redesign. You get 3 sheets in this one here. Beautiful roses. You've got some of them are the same, but they are flipped around. And I'm going to start by cutting out this beautiful rose here. And then I actually cut it in half because I want my transfer coming in from the sides up the top. So I'm just peeling off the backing, pressing my transfer down, and then I'm going to start rubbing and lifting that plastic as I'm rubbing and being patient and just making sure it's all released and down. And then I'm going to repeat the same process for the other side. If you miss any areas, you can just pop it straight back down and you can keep rubbing, and you can just get any of the areas that you missed and fix that up. And once I had that done, I cut out the other rose that's the same as the other one, and I'm going to have that on the base. I thought these roses just look so perfect paired with this paper, and it tied in perfectly with the outside as well. And I did, of course, make sure that my surface was completely dry before doing this. So once I had all my transfers done, I took out a clear coat and I'm going to seal that and the entire inside of my case. When that was dry, I started taking off the tape from the handles and the little latch there, and I'm going to add some brown antiquing glaze to the leather to freshen it up a bit, remove any excess paint, touch up any areas that I need to with that pink paint around the handles. And then once that was done, I decided that I would use some bronze metallic paint on a couple of the little handle edges there on the latch, and also on the screws as well, and also just looking for any areas that I might want to embellish. So the little tacks that are on the handle there, I'm going to paint each one of those. And I just did one coat. I thought it would be fun to bring in a metallic, and I'm also adding it to the tacks around the outside edge as well. I next took out Redesign's Lysandra mould and also the new Bloom and Flutter mould. I am going to be using a quick set ivory resin in these today. I thought these would complement the suitcase perfectly. So I'm going to start by pouring out equal parts step 1 and step 2 of the resin that I'm using. I'm stirring it really well, wearing gloves and doing this in a well ventilated area. And then I'm going to begin by pouring the resin into the Lysandra mold first. I thought that one would make a really great tag. And then I'm also adding the resin to the crowns in the Bloom and Flutter mold. Wasn't sure which one I'd use yet, so I did them all. After 10 minutes, my resin castings are ready, so I'm just having a look here which ones I might want to use. I'm going to be working on the Lysandra arched mold first, adding that same dark pink mineral paint, 2 coats of that. So this is going to match nicely with the bag. I am just going to clean off the back when I'm done. I then added the same bronze, and we're going to be adding that around the outside edge of the mold here. So just one coat with this. I'm happy for it to look a bit distressed. Next, I took out the new Fleur de Minuit H2O Transfer. This is a beautiful gilded pack of 2, and I really loved the Paris text. I thought it would go perfect on the tag, but before I add it, I decided I would paint the crown before I glue it down, just to make sure that it would remain neat. I wouldn't get any in the background. I'm not going to glue it down just yet. I'm going to add water to my frame surface, peel off the plastic cover there from the H2O transfer. I'm then going to press it design side down in the water. I'm going to add a bit more water with my mister, a bit of pressure with my wet wipe there, and then once I have that down, I'm going to carefully remove the backing. I then used Gorilla Super Glue Gel on the back of the crown to glue that above where the H2O transfer was going to go, and then I added this little pendant bail here. This is going to be our hanging attachment. I'm going to be using the same super glue to glue that attachment to the top of the tag. To tie the look in, I am going to paint that little attachment with that same bronze, and then I'm going to seal all of that with a gloss clear coat. When that was dry, I took out some chain that I had in my stash. I'm going to use some pliers to attach that to our little hanging attachment. I'll then close the little link to keep that in place, and then I'm going to use the clasp to attach it to the case, and I think this complements it perfectly. Here is how our case turned out. I think it is completely refreshed. The fiber paper, the molds, the H2O transfers just go perfectly together. Let me know in the comments what you think of today's project. If you enjoyed today's video, we would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button. And if you'd like more information about Redesign with Prima's new release, check out the description below. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit that and the notification bell. And thanks so much for watching.